Today there are a lot of updates from the Orikhiv direction. First of all, more information became available about the aftermath of the night operation that was conducted last time, when 4 Ukrainian soldiers, without incurring losses, managed to repel a mechanized Russian assault with 3 armored vehicles and 24 soldiers. According to Russian sources, Russian forces managed to retain a foothold in the village by organizing a defensive position around the local school. However, Ukrainian fighters released several videos that suggest otherwise. In the first video, a Ukrainian soldier is walking past one of the armored vehicles destroyed during the attack, and judging by the fact that they are walking slowly and not trying to hide, Russian forces are not present in the area. Another video shows how a Ukrainian unit entered the school building, confirming that Russian forces were pushed out of these positions and lost the foothold inside the village. This prompted many Russian sources to update their assessment of the situation and state that the Ukrainian army recovered all the lost positions in the settlement, with some even claiming that Ukrainians also re-established control over the southern trenches. Russian soldiers complained that they struggled to clear seized Ukrainian trenches due to Ukrainian mines, and struggled to establish a foothold in the houses because of the destruction that the Russian artillery inflicted on the settlement. Shortly after the Ukrainians consolidated control of the retaken positions, Russian forces started everything from scratch. The Russian command understood that the sudden mechanized attack did not pay off, and as Ukrainian reinforcements arrived in the region, catching Ukrainians off guard for the second time would be extremely unlikely, which is why Russians launched extensive artillery preparation. Russian sources published footage of artillery strikes showing Russia's attempts to identify and destroy Ukrainian firing points. Notably, Russian forces did not stop there and launched bombardments of the tree lines behind Robotyne. This is because Russians could see that there is no way to keep lots of soldiers inside the village, meaning that Ukrainians logically accumulated their reserves outside the village. However, Ukrainian forces did not passively let Russians conduct their firing missions, and they launched counter-battery fire to undermine the Russian artillery preparation. Russian analysts admit that, so far, the Ukrainian counter-battery fire is very effective, thanks to HIMARS. Combat footage shows how Ukrainians hunted down a lot of Russian artillery systems. The most valuable targets became 3 Russian Uragan long-range multiple-launch rocket systems. Other footage shows the destruction of howitzers, such as MSTS and Gvozdika. In order to amplify artillery fire, Russian forces also deployed a number of tank crews, whose job was to approach the village from the east and strike potential Ukrainian firing points with high explosive shells. Ukrainians quickly adjusted, and the subsequent raids were prevented by Ukrainian drone crews that destroyed Russian T-80 tanks. When the artillery preparation was completed, Russian forces launched a new wave of attacks. At first, many Russian assault units used a variation of the same tactic and tried to send between 1 and 3 armored fighting vehicles, carrying approximately 10 soldiers each. Ukrainian fighters from the 118th Artillery Brigade released footage of the aftermath of one of such assaults. Another video shows how an armored vehicle got immobilized by artillery and was left burning near the shell crater until the detonation of the ammo. Some Russian soldiers were spotted hiding under the remnants of the destroyed vehicles in hopes of being evacuated, but most of them were detected and destroyed. Russian forces reported that, with the arrival of reinforcements, Ukrainians were able to assume a more active stance and started meeting Russian attacking forces by attacking them. Many sources reported ongoing meeting engagements, which allowed the stabilization of the situation. A fighter from the 24th Battalion reported that Russian forces developed a new tactic and started using quad bikes instead of armored fighting vehicles. The main idea behind this tactic is that quad bikes are significantly more mobile and smaller than traditional armored fighting vehicles. Since Ukrainians assumed a more active stance, it became harder for Russians to reach the village on heavy equipment. However, quad bikes are capable of carrying only up to 3 people, reducing the size of the assault units. Quad bikes also do not protect Russian soldiers from mines, and Russian soldiers cannot use them as cover from Ukrainian fire. The high mobility of the vehicles did not pay off, and according to Ukrainian soldiers, all assault units were liquidated on the approaches to the village. Overall, Russian forces struggled to establish a foothold in the village because they lost the element of surprise, and now Ukrainians deployed their reserves and conducted counterattacks. The Institute for the Study of War assessed the situation and concluded that Ukrainian forces are effectively employing the tactic of maneuver defense. Based on the recent developments, such actions successfully slowed the pace of the Russian offensive effort and minimized the scale of attempted advances. If you want to get more insights into what is actually happening in the biggest war in modern history, check out my weekly strategic updates. In these updates, I provide a deep analysis of each of the Russian offensive operations, the level of preparedness of Ukrainian defense lines, how Russian forces are attempting to breach them, and how exactly the war will unfold in the next 6 to 12 months. Tomorrow, I will release a new strategic update of all fronts in Ukraine, and you can preview this and all previous strategic updates on my Patreon without even registering, or you can join a 7-day free trial and unlock full access to my exclusive reports. The link to my Patreon page is in the description. If you like the exclusive content that I offer, consider supporting me with your subscription.